Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to take a look at one of my most favourite movies ever, and that is Teenwolf. Released in August the 23rd, 1985, it stars Michael J. Fox, James Hampton, Susan Ursetti, and it was directed by Rod Daniel. Now the story of Teenwolf is that we follow young teenager Scott Howard in his high school college years. We see him frustrated in life as he struggles in a losing basketball team. He can't get the attention of the hot college chick Pamela, he's bored of living life in a quiet town of Nebraska, and he's just tired of feeling like he's average. All of a sudden he starts to experience physical changes, such as growing long chest hair and on his hands, pointy ears, having heightened senses of hearing and aggressive impulses. All of these changes manifest themselves when coming home after a party. Scott looks in the mirror and suddenly transforms into a werewolf. He learns from his father that this phase is hereditary, and he was hoping that Scott would miss this transformation within his life. Initially freaked out by the changes, Scott eventually adjusts and starts to use the werewolf attributes to his advantage. He takes the persona to become a high school celebrity, becoming a superstar of the basketball team as they go on a massive winning streak. His friends start selling merchandise of his identity, and he finally gains the attention of Pamela. Now at first life seems great, but Scott slowly realises that he wants to prove himself in his own identity, and eventually he has to choose between being the werewolf or just being himself. Now I love Teenwolf so much, having seen it so many times when growing up throughout the 80s, and when looking back on the film, it truly was part of that great era of the decade, especially the first half where as youngsters we were truly inspired by great movies which gave us characters that we could truly relate to, because of the discovery that they would go on to find themselves, but most importantly because of the story itself. We would identify and endear ourselves to seeing how they would face challenges both physical and emotional, whether it would concern their ego, rivalry, romance, family and identity. All great movies such as the Rocky Saga, Gremlins, Ghostbusters, Goonies, Flight of the Navigator, E.T., all of them reach an iconic status and transcendent connection with audiences, and Teenwolf is another classic example within this era. And when I look back on Teenwolf, I really do see it as a superhero coming of age story. We get all of the very familiar beats of a young teenager with problems trying to find his way in life, all of a sudden being inhibited and corrupted by his newfound powers or abilities. How he deals with college jock bullies, going for the wrong hot girl when not appreciating the hot girl that's right in front of him. And yes, in terms of the superhero, it's very much got those elements of classic Spider-Man and X-Men, certainly in the first half of the movie when Scott goes through his changes. Now many will argue that we have movies today that cover this narrative in a far more realistic and grounded way, making them much more relatable, because they don't have the cheesiness or the naivete of what we would see from movies such as Teenwolf. Well, I would actually contend that Teenwolf works because of its naivete, because of its sentimentality, because of its cheesiness. These are qualities that keep the film remaining in such a positive vibe and energy and charm, and most importantly it makes it a fun film to watch. Everything from the characters to the great scenes, amongst my personal favourites, which include Scott's first transformation at the house party when he's with Biff in a closet, when Scott is as the wolf dancing on the truck listening to Surfing USA, and of course the climatic basketball match with Scott choosing his true identity when working with his teammates. It plays out to the incredible song Win in the End by Mark Saffin, which is so infectious and impressionable. I remember many times rewinding the VHS of this film and playing this sequence again and again. And so many of the movies throughout the 80s had that great song to match the climatic fight or dramatic match. And at the heart of this film is of course Michael J. Fox, who easily is very rootable and likeable as Scott, and this was at the time, alongside the Family Ties series and of course the Back to the Future franchise, that Michael J. Fox would become a massive star within the 80s. A truly great character also is Styles, Scott's best friend, played by Jerry Levine, who holds so much of the humour, and he's very much trying to maximise on Scotty's new Teenwolf celebrity status. And he's really the party guy, but he's also very loyal to Scott. Again, this makes him a very likeable character, and I love all of the scenes that he's in throughout the film. And I always had a fondness for Booth, who was played by Susan Ursetti. She's very much the loyal best friend who has feelings for Scott, but constantly has to watch him pine over and pursue Pamela. She's very sweet natured and a good supporting presence, and even though Pamela is presented as the hot girl, I've always found Booth to be just as pretty or even more attractive. James Hampton is also good as Scott's father, again drawing those Uncle Ben personality traits. He even quotes the line, "Great power comes great responsibility," and he's another fine presence, adding some sort of gravitas and personal connection throughout the film as well. So when we talk about the film's overall release, and whilst it wasn't a behemoth blockbuster, it was still an extremely successful and very profitable movie, grossing over 80 million worldwide on just a budget of around $1.2 million. And it also cemented Michael J. Fox's rising star status by holding up the top 2 positions within the box office in the US for numerous weeks alongside Back to the Future, which also ended up being the biggest movie of 1985. Now, there was a sequel to Teenwolf which was released in 1987 starring Jason Bateman in the lead role, but that was nowhere near as impactful or charming as the original. There also was a television series of the same name, released in 2011, which ran for 6 seasons until 2017. But again, that series was far more of a darker, deconstructive take on the story, and whilst many may have deemed it far more contemporary, but for me, I didn't find it anywhere near as appealing or endearing as what the original 1985 film was. And for me, that's what's really special about Teen Wolf. It really is appealing, it's bright, it's entertaining and endearing, perhaps predictable and naive, but that's really what adds to its charm so much. And along with the great elements of a character and the story arc, a positive vibe and energy, Teen Wolf is definitely part of that classic 1980s mainstream cinema and very much of a superhero coming of age story. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and reflection on Teen Wolf as a film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you grew up watching the film throughout the 80s, do you have any fond memories? Do you think it's left a lasting legacy? Are you a fan of indeed the sequel or indeed a television series, or do you still think that the original film stands way above those later interpretations? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if there are any other movies or television series or any other topics that you'd like to see me discuss later within the channel, then also drop me a suggestion within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.